in Oklahoma, we are all about stealing from the best. And so this is very a street. And so if you have some great things happening in your states, we are very interested in that as well. We've been so grateful for our great partnership with CCA these last few years and for the amazing support, Charles, that you and your team have provided here in Oklahoma. And I just want to note, if you are ever, any of you in Oklahoma, please drop by. We'd love to see you. Well, I get the awesome privilege of introducing some fantastic team members here at the State Board of Regents in Oklahoma. And they will be the brains behind the presentation, as you will quickly see. I'm going to start with Dr. Robert Placido, and he will actually be batting cleanup today. But Robert is our Vice Chancellor of Academic and Student Affairs. He's got an amazing track record, which includes more than 25 years of experience in higher education leadership. He was previously the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs for the state of Maine. If any of you are from Maine, I apologize right now for stealing Robert from you, but we are thrilled to have him here with us. He also has corporate experience and Air Force experience, and he now oversees all of our policies, our work on our strategic plan, on everything that has to do with academic affairs. It's also my privilege to introduce Angel Eisenhower, and Angel will start us off here in a little bit. Angel serves as the Academic Affairs Student Success Initiatives Coordinator. And what she is spending her time doing all day, every day is helping to foster collaboration among our institutions in order to enhance our course transfer process. And there's a lot that has happened that's great, but like any state, we would tell you we still have opportunities for improvement, and we certainly recognize that. One of the things that's unusual about Oklahoma is we have a career technology system that is separate from the higher ed system. And so her ability to collaborate well includes not just our higher ed partners, but also the career tech centers. And she also supports the military transfer of credits as well. She'll be demoing parts of a site called Show What You Know, and it's a prior learning assessment site. And you'll get to see that here in a minute, but I should note that is a companion site to our high school student-oriented site, which is OK College Start. And that is a career exploration site that has been used by our high schools in Oklahoma for the career planning by high school students that's required by state statute. And so Angel will be driving you through Show What You Know. Then Brad Griffith will be presenting on Microc Credentials. He is the Associate Vice Chancellor for the state regents, and he has responsibility for Microc Credentials, ReachHire, which is our adult completion initiative, and he oversees our Council for Online Learning Excellence. He's also recently won an award from WICHE for cooperation for education technologies. And so we've got a great team here. And Upskill, which Brad has headed up, is a micro-credential process that actually has been implemented very quickly, and it has very quickly been scaled. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Angel to share about Show What You Know. Thank you so much again for coming.
Thank you, Chancellor Garrett. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can run through my PowerPoint slides with everyone. So as Chancellor Garrett mentioned, Oklahoma has Show What You Know, which is a one-stop website for students to find out how their recently earned college credit or non-traditional classroom setting work can be applied towards their degree program. And just to give a quick broad overview of what you're going to learn today of what the site encompasses is it has 4 separate categories. One for adult learners to figure out how their previously earned college credits can transfer and apply in a program for them, as well as students who have completed coursework at a career technology center, individuals with prior military study or training, as well, and students who have completed any type of qualifying assessment that may qualify for credit for prior learning. And so I'm going to go in order from left to right. So the first up is the adult student tab. So any student who have already earned college credit, we have two resources for them. The first one is the course equivalency project. This is a database containing faculty generated course equivalencies. We have 48 disciplines in over 8,000 courses. We invite all public institutions as well as all HLC accredited private institutions to participate in this project. We actually, last week, we worked on our faculty meeting. At the faculty meeting, we asked that the presidents of each institution or the academic vice presidents nominate a representative to represent that discipline. And during that meeting, they developed student learning outcomes for those courses that are listed in there. We focus on a couple each year, so we're still working on that, but they just developed at a minimum what the student needs to learn in that course to be successful in their sequential courses. This saves students time and money, and it just really shows them how their course is going to transfer from one institution to another. So recently, we were actually able to create a searchable course transfer matrix. And on this one, we have two separate tabs. So it's for students if they would like to find out how their courses that they've already completed, how they will transfer, or if they're looking to take a course in the summer, where can they take a course and transfer it back to their home institution and to ensure that it is equivalent and will count for the course that they're trying to fulfill. And so I will give you a kind of a brief look at both options. The first one that we'll cover is that tab that if you would have selected, if the student would have selected, where will my course transfer? The CEP is based on academic year, so they do have to select what year they completed the course. There is a chance that the course would become non-equivalent or removed by an institution, or new courses are added. So it does matter on what semester the course was taken. Once that's done, then they would go through and select what course they're looking for. So in this example, the student completed Principles of Microeconomics at Oklahoma City Community College. And then below that, it shows every institution that that course would actually transfer to, as well as more that just wouldn't fit on the graphic today. But you could see that there are several options listed here, and then it just kind of varies based on course. The next option the student would take is if they're trying to complete a course in the summer and transfer it back to their home institution. And so on this one, it's important for them to select the actual institution that they're currently attending, and then just identify what course they're trying to fulfill. So this student wants to transfer back a retail management course back to OSU. And then the list below shows what institutions have equivalent courses below. So they'll be able to take the retail management course at the University of Central Oklahoma if they would like, and transfer that back to Oklahoma State University with no issues. The next program for adult learners that have already completed college courses is the ReachHire program. This is an adult degree completion statewide incentive. So the adult degree completion, we do have two pathways. The first one is Flex Finish. This has an associate's in an enterprise development as well as a bachelor's in organizational leadership. Those are pretty general degrees, so they can kind of put the courses that they already have. They most likely will fit into that area, and they'll be able to complete that degree pretty seamlessly. The next option is the Direct Complete, which that program is tied to Oklahoma's critical occupations, and they do offer associates as well as bachelor's in that program as well. And as of spring 2023, there were over 11,000 graduates for the ReachHire program. Oh, no. Oh, wait, you should still be. Can you still see it? Okay.
Yeah.
So the next category we're going to go over is the if a student had completed coursework at a career technology center in Oklahoma. So the program could be tied to a cooperative agreement, and that just means that the institution has partnered with a career technology center for portions of programs or individual courses. So if it is going to be a portion of the program, it would be just underneath the cooperative agreement program inventory, and we have 92 cooperative agreements in place right now. And then if it's just the individual courses, it would be listed on the technical transfer matrix, which there are 125 technical courses listed on that matrix right now. This is a snapshot of the cooperative agreements that we currently have in place. And so you can see the degree programs that are available are pretty broad. We have some in business administration, accounting, physical therapy assistant, and they're partnering with career techs that are in their vicinity. So if they are closer to one career tech, they're most likely to partner with somebody that's kind of more in their area than they would somebody across the state. And that's what we encourage them to do. And the hours that are offered in the programs vary from 3 all the way to 36 on this example. The next inventory is the individual course inventory, so the technical transfer. We do have 4 institutions that have technical transfer courses in place right now, and we have several of those as mentioned, and this is just a quick example of them. So if a student if they plan to go to Seminole State College and they've taken Intro to Accounting at Central Technology Center, they will be able to get credit at Seminole State College from completing that course at that Career Technology Center, because the faculty has reviewed the student learning outcomes from that Tech Center course and have deemed it as equivalent to the institution's course. So my next area is if a student has completed military study or training. So Oklahoma, we took on a pretty big project. We've met with 3 or 4 subject areas with military personnel and experts on the call. They provided their military POI, which is the program of instruction, which would be kind of equivalent to what we're familiar as syllabi. And we had faculty on the call. We kind of followed a similar process to what we did with the CEP. And we had nominated faculty review the military program of instructions to see if we can determine equivalencies for the military courses. And we've developed a Oklahoma military specific transfer inventory. So students are able to go on and type in their MOS, or if they know the ACE ID number. Several of the articulations that came out of that meeting do line with the ACE recommendations that are listed on the ACE military guide, but we were able to capture what the Oklahoma institutions will actually award, so the students not just looking at what ACE is saying that you might be able to get, they'll actually be able to look at what, in this example would be Cameron University, what Cameron will give the student if they were a Canyon crew member. So on that tab on our website, we also do direct students back to the ACE military guide, just in case we haven't captured everything. They are able to go back through there and make sure that they can see what they might be eligible for and get in contact with their institution, as well as several other resources that they can utilize as being prior military. So I saved the best for last. We have the industry credentials, or if the student has completed an advanced standing or just an institutional assessment or anything related to credit for prior learning, this is probably the one that you're going to want to listen to and possibly replicate in your state. So I'm going to kind of click on Oklahoma recognizes that a credit for prior learning is very important, and that we want to give students credit for learning that they've obtained outside the traditional classroom setting. So we have 10 validation methods for institutions to be able to utilize to grant credit for prior learning. I won't read them all to you, but definitely the one that we are kind of showcasing today would be the system-wide technical assessment inventory for evaluated industry recognized credentials, apprenticeships, certifications, and professional licensure. So number 10, but definitely encourage you to utilize as much as you can for your state. So with that in mind, I'm going to walk you through just a student example. Hold on, it's skipping. A student example on how a student might end up with an industry credential. So as Chancellor Garrett mentioned, we do partner and utilize the Oklahoma College Start in our state. Students are required to complete an OCAP for graduation requirements that started in 2019, 2020. And so when the student does that, they take a career cluster survey to identify what their interests are. For my example, I'm going to show that although it's the second option, I feel like it is relevant and the student could still utilize manufacturing and then the welding fields in the ag and food and natural resources because they might need to weld on the farm. So we're going to stick with the welding and the manufacturing. So the student wants to become a welder, and based on their ICAP results, this aligns with what their idea and what they want to do. So Oklahoma College Start, as well as even the Career Technology Centers and now the Oklahoma State Regents, we all utilize the NOC Clusters, which are the items that are listed on the far right of the slides. So manufacturing is one of those clusters, and welding fits into that cluster. And so that student wants to become a welder. They've completed it and they are a certified welder. And they want to, a couple of years down the road, they want to figure out how they can apply that or if they can receive college credit for being a certified welder. And they've come across our website and they're able to see what can happen. And so for testing and assessment inventory, for that inventory, we have several different options listed under there. So if ACE, AP, CLEP, Dante's, IB, or even institutional assessments that might apply towards their degree because it's credit for prior learning, as well as the industry recognized credentials. We have over 1,700 testing options and then 390 industry credentials. Sorry. So again, back to that student, they've come across our website and they found that they are a certified welder and that they would be able to get 15 hours if they've attended Murray State College. As well as they would be able to attend OSUIT and get 3 hours if they have a faculty member review their portfolio or if they complete a department exam and a skills assessment. So there are a variety of methods that the student can kind of go down in order to get credit for the work that they've already done. So this goes back to the NOC clusters as well. I will say that when we started this project, we did not think about NOC clusters. It wasn't even in our minds. We were trying to develop the industries and clusters on our own, just based on what we kind of already collected through credit for prior learning. And then it kind of hit us. We have a committee, and when we were on the call, somebody mentioned NOC clusters, and it just started making sense. And we started connecting those dots. Like, why would we reinvent a wheel that has already been created? It's easier to align with what the career, like we're trying to partner with career techs with this statewide incentive for the AAS and applied technology. Why wouldn't we go ahead and utilize the NOC clusters that they're also using in order to kind of round out this program and make that full circle connection? These are slightly modified just based on what works best in our state. But for the majority, they align pretty closely, and we have added, just because Oklahoma has a lot of aerospace and aviation, that is not an NOC cluster, but we do have that as an option because we have several institutions that have a degree program that filters into that with the FAA certifications. So we have all the states that participate in the AAS and Applied Science and Applied Technology program listed, as well as all the clusters that we utilize for this program. Here. And I would say I definitely encourage you to take a look at this. And if you don't already have something similar in your state, to possibly think about replicating it. Our listing for it helps the student with transparency to see what credit they'll be able to get if they have the certification. And our number on our inventory when we started this program practically doubled. And we do have, if looking at just CPL that's reported in our state, based on the most recent, or based on the most recent data that I had at the time and that I examined and pulled and looked at through our unitized data system, it was revealed that over 6,900 credit hours were awarded for credit for prior learning in a span of over 2,000 courses. And so I'm sure that you have similar situations or scenarios in your state. And if you don't already have something that you can kind of filter in just your workforce and your credentials into a degree program, I encourage you to kind of look at this and even reach out to us if you have any questions. We can help you through that and kind of walk you through how to get all that done. And sorry, I will stop sharing my screen. That's the end. And I don't know if we want to take questions now or wait until the very end.
So I think it's up to you all, but I do want to make a comment and then see, if there are questions or if you'd prefer to move over to the second half first. But one is, one thing that the Oklahoma team can also share is the policy that undergirds all this, right? So I know that a lot of you, benefit. I think that we all benefit from the high level of strength and state coordination that is clearly behind all of this. And so I think it's most important to see that vision up front and to see what it looks like from the student's perspective, because I'm confident that, if you work that backwards, then the right policies will come into place. But that said, if you ever want to do as a follow-up or even ask questions now about like what policies do help make that work, there is that architecture behind this. And, but in the interest of time, and we extended this to be a bit of a longer call, we still wanted to emphasize everything that this is allowing for in practice. But let me pause there, see if Oklahoma would want to correct me if I'm wrong there or add to it, and certainly see if there are questions before we move to the second portion.
Charles, I'll just note one thing, and you may have been a little puzzled about the references to the career techs. We have a very robust, very strong career tech system here in Oklahoma, but it is not HLC accredited, and that's why you see some of the additional effort to make sure that we can transfer those credits. And I want to make sure we have plenty of time to allow Brad to share about the Microc Credential project. So if you're amenable to it, Charles, let's move on to that and then take questions at the end.
I am amenable.
Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you, Charles. It's great to be with you all today and to have an opportunity to share about our, I don't want to call it a new initiative anymore because it doesn't feel so new with the way that it's been scaling. But for workforce micro credentials called Upskill OK, I do have some slides that I will share with you all today, along with lots of points I think where we can have some discussion. And I will just put it out there because we will cover a fair amount in my slides. Please feel free to put any questions in the chat, unmute yourself, let us know along the way, because I think there are points that might be worth stopping and kind of lingering on just a moment as we kind of figure this out. One of the other requests that I would also add is if you all don't mind, please drop in the chat and let me know your state and whether you do or don't have a formalized micro-credential policy or initiative. And again, you could be at a system level like we are, or perhaps working within a university system as a policy leader. But I am curious to kind of know where we are with the individuals that are on the call as I go ahead and get this underway here. So forgive me just one moment while I get my screen share pulled up. So I also want to extend the offer. If you all have follow-up questions that come to mind after this, you can reach out to our micro-credentials team at badges@osrhe.edu at any point. we are happy to present this as well to your teams if it may be of assistance, or to other policymakers that you're working with as needed. We do that frequently for other state systems, so just want to put that offer out there up front. I am actually going to begin by demonstrating a video for you all today that is our essential call to action for Upskill OK and Microc Credentials. And after we do that, I'll actually provide a little bit of an overview of what our policy is for Microc Credentials and how it came about, some of the outcomes that we have been able to observe since this program launched in 2022. We'll spend plenty of time discussing some examples of programs that have been launched by our institutions and some of the innovative ways that they've been able to work with industry partners, and also leverage some of the other special projects that have been launched through projects at the state regents. And then I'm going to close out by telling you, kind of opening our hearts a little bit to what it is that we may not have solved yet and where we feel that we need to be heading, specifically including the fall semester that's right in front of us right now today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this underway. And again, I welcome you all to continue dropping those responses in the chat as you are able about whether you have a formalized micro-credential policy initiative or not within your state. But let's go ahead and watch this call to action video. And this will take just a moment to load. Sometimes the embedded YouTube videos take just a minute. There we go.
Upskill your workforce with micro-credential training and college credit courses through upskillok.org, Oklahoma Higher Education's rapid micro-credential training program. If you're looking to provide professional leadership and skills training for your workforce, Oklahoma's public colleges and universities are ready to partner with you to create tailored courses and training programs for job-specific skills. Courses and credentials are aligned with Oklahoma's critical occupations. Upskill your workforce today. Learn more at upskillok.org.
So to give you a bit of history before I read through this policy statement that is on the screen here, Upskill OK and Microc Credentials actually initiated for us during the pandemic. There were a few grant opportunities that were made available through the Department of Education and the Department of Labor, which were called Reimagining Workforce Preparation and Strengthening Community Colleges. At that time, Oklahoma was experiencing the massive employment shortfall like many of the other states due to pandemic kind of precautions that were in place. And we saw these grant opportunities as a way that we could do something about that through short-term learning. We had an opportunity whenever this policy was drafted and we were working on the grant proposal to collaborate with Oklahoma Career Tech as well as the State Department of Education, which is our K-12 unit within the state, to come up with a vision for a system for how these kinds of short-term learning opportunities might work together for Oklahomans and really help us to, I think, break down some of the barriers that students experience sometimes, much in the way that we have tried to do with Show What You Know, with what Angel has discussed with the career tech articulations there, among other examples. This policy that you see on the screen took months to come up with, and I cannot express enough appreciation to one of my colleagues, Dr. Stephanie Beaucamp, who serves as our Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, for the leadership that she took on with our Council on Instruction to develop this policy. One of the things that Charles has kind of mentioned along the way, and again, I appreciate about the opportunity to work in Oklahoma, is we have an amazing series of advisory groups that advise us in the agency as well as our board on matters related to policy, budget, procedure, student needs, and everything else within the state system of higher education. So this policy that you're reading on the screen, which I'll review here momentarily, was ultimately driven by our academic officers through the governance process that was in place. There was an ad hoc micro-credentials committee that was created on our Council of Instruction that evaluated policies not only from within North America, but across the globe, because micro-credentials really are a globalized initiative. And some of the other continents have actually made inroads, I think, a little bit further even than we have in the US along the way. So there were a lot of different models that we inspected and looked at in coming up with this policy. So as we read through the definition together on the screen, micro-credentials are short-term learning programs that are comprised of a coherent set of measurable non-credit bearing activities or projects and or up to 9 hours of credit bearing courses that provide specific career critical skills, competencies, and knowledge that can be readily transferred to the workplace. I know that many of you all who may have been academic officers in a prior role might be working as a vice chancellor for academic affairs now, look at this policy and maybe see some complications for how operations are underway within your system. I highlight that and or statement there in red and underline it for a very specific reason. We lingered on this for a very long time with the academic officers to figure out how we could bring a program type, a cohesive program type together that included non-credit learning. This is new territory for us at the state regents, and as far as the system goes, to be providing endorsement at the state level for what is essentially continuing education programs. The focus that I will ask you to make here is on the fact that those non-credit bearing activities and projects have to provide career critical skills, competencies, and knowledge. Assessment is mandatory for all of these programs. We do have certain submissions that have come through our way that might be more of a professional development workshop, something that really doesn't have much of a commitment for those that are going through the experience that don't meet this policy, because ultimately these credentials should communicate to employers at the end of the day what it is that these individuals can do and the fact that they've demonstrated those knowledge and set of skills that they have in that observed learning environment. A couple of other things that I'll point out within the policy includes the specificity of having 9 credit hours as the limit for a micro-credential program type. We do, within the state regent system of Oklahoma, or the state system of higher ed, have short-term certificate programs, full certificate programs, associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, graduate degrees, and professional degrees. And this type of program ultimately sits at that lowest rung on the ladder of the types of programs that can be approved by the state regents. Coincidentally, we also have an admission policy on the book that allows our institutions to admit a student or allow them to enroll up to 9 hours of credit-bearing coursework without having to apply for formal admission to the institution. So again, with the and or statement of credit versus non-credit, plus that 9 hours of limitation for this particular program type, we're leaning on some of the existing procedures and policies that were in place in the system to be able to get this program launched quickly. One of the things that I will mention, just for the sake of letting you know that we're a work in progress still on this, is that we do have a kind of prediction out there that we may need eventually to adjust our admission policies to account for more learners completing micro-credentials. If a learner, for example, right now wants to complete 2 or 3 micro-credentials at an institution, they would have to request an exception to enroll beyond those 9 credit hours at that single school in order to earn that other credential, which they are able to do with a granted exception from their president. And we are tracking the exceptions to those policies on a year-by-year basis with the potential, again, to make a recommendation to adjust that as we move forward. So as you all consider launching a micro-credential program, and I'll go ahead and pull the chat up here to see kind of where we are. And again, I'm so happy to have had this opportunity to share some of this insight and even just our definition with you, seeing how many of you are actually working on this right now. And once again, that offer is still on the table. If we can be of assistance in sharing with you, connecting you with even with some of our academic officers that worked on this policy, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to connect you with them. So moving forward just a little bit from our definition here, I wanted to give you a preview of how this has now come about, because it does have a web presence ultimately, which was a bit of a challenge for us to get to. We figured out the policy and what that was going to look like up front, and then had to ultimately decide how are we going to disclose these programs once they're available to Oklahomans who might be interested in them. So we engaged with a vendor to develop our website, which is now located at upskillok.org. And I encourage you to visit our website and take some time to explore the 3 funnel pages that are available there. The first page that you'll find within the navigation bar is dedicated to employers. So we are trying to get employers to understand what micro-credentials are and the fact that our institutions have an open invitation for them to work with faculty in their programs, share what their needs are for hiring practices, emerging trends that may have occurred within their industry, so that our programs can be aligned exactly with what workforce needs are on a continuous basis. So we have an interest form that is on that page ultimately that employers can submit, tell us what they would like to develop with an institution, and we serve as a referatory and can provide them with those direct contacts and put them in touch with the right partner. Students and employees can also come and find out about these types of programs, what digital badges can do for them, which I'll discuss here just in a minute, and also what exactly it looks like for them to enroll in one of these programs, considering as of now, which I'll get to here in a bit, we have 23 institutions that have programs listed on this website. It is a lot to manage whenever you have that number of schools that are all trying to put their programs available in a single database to help an individual understand, find your program, navigate to the information page, and then make contact with an individual at that institution. Having mentioned that, we have a page for the institutions that discloses all of the information they need to know about the program approval process and about micro-credentials. This is another just kind of word to the wise from me. Micro-credentials can take off like wildfire. And there is a certain element of this where faculty are going to find out about the opportunity to develop these programs, and the goals that they have may not always be in alignment with the goals of an individual institution. So word to the wise out of this one is just to make sure that as you develop your micro-credential program, you have a clear strategy for it at the start and try to figure out which areas you would like to address, which faculty you may want to bring into the initiative, or what your critical occupation needs are that need to be addressed first, because you may not have the resources to devote to a large number of programs to be developed or scholarshiped. So the last and most important part of our website, as I mentioned, is the program directory. So you can find it by selecting that search for micro-credentials button, which is on the upper right-hand corner if you're on our homepage. And we have a directory now of over 250 programs, which I'll discuss here in a bit. We, again, had to make decisions at a state level about what information about these programs is going to be useful for employers that may be interested in putting their candidates or employees through them, or individuals who are looking for opportunities to improve their life. So on the homepage, you will notice we kind of made some decisions about launch date of the program, timeline to completion, and the way that the program is offered as the way to kind of disclose this information. They can also click on any of the program entries that are within our database, see the digital credential that is awarded upon its completion, read a further description of the program, along with other details, including is the program credit-bearing or non-credit? And if it's credit-bearing, which degree programs does it stack into? So letting them know, again, if you complete this credential, there is something next for you on this pathway that uses the information that you've gained and the courses that you've taken as part of this micro. So once again, encourage you all to navigate to our website, explore the programs. One of the things that I will tell you that is on my roadmap for making an improvement here is the disclosure of cost of these programs. It can be quite a challenge, again, working with 23 institutions that all have individualized tuition structures, which change if it's a credit-bearing course on a year-over-year basis, to try to put a price disclosure on the website. We do, however, have a number of programs available for free. Some of them are offered on online platforms like Coursera. Others are being offered in partnership with organizations, one of which I'll discuss here momentarily. So again, cost, we realize, is an area where we need to put information out there, and we're still trying to figure out the best way to do that and manage the information in a collective way from the institutions. As I've mentioned previously, every credential that is awarded through Upskill OK has to be recognized in the form of a digital badge. If you've never experienced digital badging before, I recommend that you try to find an opportunity to earn one. You can navigate even to credly.com and search through the directory for hundreds of thousands of opportunities of badges that you can earn, many of which come from free resources and training resources like Microsoft, many of which could also come from Oklahoma colleges and universities if you have interest there. But ultimately, you have an opportunity whenever you finish one of these programs to get a digital artifact that represents what it is that you have learned and documents the completion of your micro-credential by that institution in perpetuity. You can see on the left-hand example there a badge that is issued for the computer support micro-credential, which is completed at Oklahoma City Community College. There are a series of skill tags that we program on the digital badges issued for these credentials. And when a learner receives one of these badges and clicks on one of those skill tags, they can find live job openings that are connected within their region that actually list that specific skill requirement that was programmed by the institution. When working with your faculty of designing new micro-credential programs, or perhaps aligning existing courses or programs with workforce needs, skills extraction is a place where you can spend a lot of valuable time. There are tools out there that I've referenced for faculty many times, including MC. They have a great syllabus checker where you can just upload a syllabus for a course or any learning materials, and it will extract these types of skill tags to make it easier for faculty to understand and navigate and connect, again, digitally with postings that are relevant for their field. The best part about this, I think, is that individual students have an opportunity to share this earned digital badge with employers. On my own resume now, I have, for example, digital badges that are hyperlinked over the skills that I have listed there that go to digital badges that have been awarded on that basis. And I always love to give the example when I'm presenting to different groups of Microsoft Excel. I can imagine every one of us on this call puts that we have Microsoft Excel proficiency as a technical skill within our resumes. But how much more valuable would that be if you had a digital credential that was verified by an institution or perhaps even by Microsoft that certified what it is that you did to gain that skill and can help an employer find out more about that? Through the platform that the state regents use, which is Credly right now, we also have access to a function that's called the talent directory. So our students that are earning digital credentials are publicly searchable on their own volition, mind you. They do protect their own data and have that option, but they can be found and searched on the basis of skill within our talent directory, which is a function of Credly. So you can see within the example on the right-hand side, we plugged in critical thinking, presentation and report writing, and research. And there were, at the time we pulled this image, 222 earners that had all three of those skills documented through tags that were programmed into the digital badge. So metadata is a very important component of digital badging, not only in and of itself, but again, also for the particular goals that we have for the Micro-Credentials initiative to help inform our learners about jobs that they may qualify for on the basis of these skills that they've earned. But again, it's really wonderful having that opposite connection where employers, they could come find people if they're having trouble on the basis of particular skill that has already been validated and documented by one of our colleges or universities. Feel free to scan that QR code that you see on the bottom left-hand portion of the page, and it will actually take you to our Credly account where you can explore all of the digital credentials that we host for institutions. One of the things that I do want to mention concerning policy implications at this point is also the management of digital badging. So again, we require that every micro-credential awarded be issued in the form of a digital badge and transcripted if it's a 4-credit course, but we do not require our institutions to use our digital badging platform. So we provide access to Credly to institutions at zero cost through the budget that we have for this project. But we have many institutions that have opted to get their own digital badging platform, which may be through Credly, it could be through another vendor like Instructure or Accredible, to set up badges for their own purposes that are outside of what we're trying to do with academic programs. So again, at kind of the state level perspective, what I would encourage you to consider is digital badging may have goals that go well beyond the bounds of a micro-credential program, and you want to try to make it as easy as possible for individuals in an institution who may have to manage that platform and that process to make all of these things function together. One example I can give you is that a couple of our institutions issue digital badges on the basis of years of service. This is not something that would normally be supported through the academic initiatives that we have at the state regents, but could certainly be a valid use of digital badging for employees of an institution. So what is this doing for the skills gap in Oklahoma, which is ultimately what we're trying to address with micro-credentials? The first thing is that we have more programs available for Oklahoma's critical occupation areas. Micro-credentials have allowed us to be very nimble, partially because of the funding support that we have available, which have included us being able to issue a series of special project grants this fall for institutions to develop single programs. We have the proposal that actually just went out, and so we will be making project grant awards in areas like artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, teacher education, aerospace and defense, advanced manufacturing, and Oklahoma's other top 100 critical occupation areas. As you all have also seen with what we discussed in digital badging, we're really helping students to innovate their resume-worthy achievements. So helping them understand, even within the bounds of traditional programs like associate's degrees and bachelor's degrees, if we can issue digital badges to them and embed micro-credentials within those programs that are stackable, our learners will continuously have opportunities to update their resume and indicate the skills that they are learning to the employers. They should not have to wait until they finish a degree to have the tools that they need to do that. We're also helping our learners, once again, identify those skills and outcomes that employers care about. This, again, is why I appreciate the function of skill tagging within digital badges. They see that gratification and the connection of what it is that they learned in the academic experience with something that is listed on an active job posting, something within their region that they may potentially qualify for. Micro-credentials, in my opinion, and from what we've observed so far, also provide an opportunity for lifelong development. We will have a continuous revolving door of learning opportunities available, regardless of the age of the individual, where they are in their career, such as looking for undergraduate or perhaps graduate level micro-credential programs, professional development schemes, which we may want to create with our employer partners, and again, addressing emerging technologies as we see with things like artificial intelligence. One of the other opportunities that I've appreciated with this as well, and again, going back to Angel's presentation with Show What You Know, is you can see such opportunities to be able to integrate industry credentials and professional development pathways into these micro-credentials. Particularly within cybersecurity and IT, I've seen many of our institutions create building blocks within their programs that honor assessments such as the A+ certification that's issued by CompTIA. So again, recognizing these learning opportunities where they happen, when they've happened, whether it's now or previous in a learner's path, it's integrated across both of these types of programs with Upskill OK and Show What You Know. So let's get to some of the exciting portions of this with our program examples. A while back, and I say a while back as in, I believe this might have been around January or February of this year, we were reached out to by the Oklahoma Department of Corrections to see if there was something that we could do to help with the shortfall of detention and correctional officers that exists across the state of Oklahoma. Oklahoma has also made some changes recently to the eligibility for employment criteria for this particular profession, in that we will now have younger individuals that may be serving as detention and correctional officers in facilities across the state. We issued a call for proposals to our institutions that are participating in the Micro-Credentials Initiative and asked them to partner with the Oklahoma Department of Corrections, their local law enforcement agencies, and correctional facilities in their area to propose the creation of micro-credential programs that would equip entry-level detention and correctional officers with the skills that they need to be successful on the job. What we have realized out of this by creating an open-ended call for proposals is the creativity that can happen on the part of institutions. We now have over plan for 8 of these credentials to be launched across our system. Those that are already live, I've demonstrated for you on the bottom of the screen there. But we have multiple program types that have been included under this single umbrella of detention and correctional officers that can really tailor to the needs and goals of any individual that may be interested in that pathway. So we have, for example, stackable credit-bearing programs that are embedded within an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, such as at Northern Oklahoma College and the University of Central Oklahoma. Oklahoma City Community College took another approach with non-credit learning options, which at the end of the day will be lower cost for the individuals going through the program because they don't have to charge regular tuition and fees. And they're taking an interdisciplinary approach to the program using existing courses from areas like psychology and sociology, modifying the curriculum in collaboration with the Department of Corrections. You also, once again, have the big spread there, as I mentioned, of 2-year and 4-year institution programs. So if there's somebody who's interested in being a detention and correctional officer who may already have an associate's degree from one of our colleges, they may prefer to go to that 4-year program and get that senior level credit from the University of Central Oklahoma. Whereas if you have another individual that's interested in this pathway, may never have set foot in the college campus door, they may be more interested in that non-credit opportunity, which could be a great exposure for a first glance at college. One of the great parts about this program as well is the involvement of open educational resources. The Department of Corrections has been able to work with many of these institutions, including Seminole State College, to revamp existing courses on their campus to make them more contextualized and more relevant for individuals going through the Microc Credentials program. One of these examples I can give you is for general psychology at Seminole State College. In collaboration with the DOC, they have used open educational resources to go module by module through that class and integrate particular information that's relative to criminal justice, and are now able to offer a specific section of that course dedicated to this micro-credential program. My favorite part about it is that they have the enrollment numbers through this partnership with DOC to sustain that specific course section. The next slide that I'm going to demonstrate for you here actually does include another video, and I'm going to go ahead and play the video for you all, and then I'll provide some specific details about this program. But the video that is going to provide you with some perspectives from myself, Dr. Caitlin Barnes, who works in the College of Arts and Sciences Outreach Program at Oklahoma State University, and Mr. Robert Keys, who is actually a board member on the National Groundwater Association and operates a series of companies within the state of Oklahoma and beyond that focus on groundwater drilling. So let's go ahead and hear from them.
Micro-credentials are a very new way of thinking about training future generations of the workforce. So it's kind of not traditional to go to a university just to learn a few skill sets. You earn an entire degree. But with micro-credentials, you can get the little pieces you need to be more successful in your field.
I think that we've opened our doors to an entire new market of individuals who may have never thought that college was right for them, but now they would see, I have an opportunity to complete a short-term learning opportunity, one that I know is connected to what an industry partner needs, because we've done that work of connecting the institutions with those industry partners and employers to create something that matters.
We had industry coming to us and saying, how do we develop training right now to meet this immediate need? And so I had a conversation with Robert Keys, and he is very heavily involved with the National Groundwater Association. I mean, he is very enthralled in the pulse of the groundwater industry.
And so these certifications will not just give you the basis of drilling of whatever industry you're drilling in. At any juncture along the way, they can then cross over and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I can become a professional. Maybe I can be a geologist or hydrogeologist in this through this whole program.
So when they graduate, they now have a resume full of not just a degree and theoretical foundational knowledge, they have real, tangible, practical, applicable skills that they can use first day on the job.
So a few details about this particular program. Within the groundwater drilling industry, which is one of the most important industries that we can possibly have in this country, if you've never researched it, there's a 130,000 employee shortfall across the U.S. So the National Groundwater Association wanted to partner with an institution to help them fix this shortfall and to build pathways that begin all the way with students that are in kindergarten to those that have professional degrees ultimately and may be interested in being researchers within this field. So through the outreach division of the College of Arts and Sciences, they have built out an 8-module online training program that's called Drilling Basics Online. This program is currently available at no cost to any individual that would like to enroll in it, both with combined support from the Oklahoma State Regents with scholarshiping, but also with the industry partners that have a vested interest in remedying the employment shortfall. So one of the feedback points that I've received in conversations with Robert Keys, their industry partner, is that they knew that they could lean on higher education to build out learning pathways that would have successful measurement of outcomes that they cared about for these particular individuals. If you have people that are drilling unsafely for groundwater, you can pollute the entire table for a population, which can ruin a community. So it's important that they have programs that, again, can measure those competencies. And it was also particularly important that the program be available online. So again, being highly technical in nature with groundwater drilling, OSU was able to leverage some of their existing instructional technologies like virtual reality, course development, open educational resources to build out a program of quality. And so now OSU has become the national groundwater university. Any state board for water drilling will refer individuals to this particular training program in order to meet those competencies, once again, at zero cost, even for those individuals from out of state because of the industry association, but more so even for the individuals in our state through the combined support and scholarshiping that we can provide, which I'll talk about soon. The other interesting part about this that you heard Caitlin mention in the video is that while any individual off the street can come and complete this college program because it's offered through continuing education, the students that are in their bachelor's, master's, and doctoral programs of geology are also completing this micro credential because they see the value add that it can bring to their resume and their transcript even when they complete that full degree program. So it's an interesting and innovative model, once again, that brings industry relevance, leverages the resources that are available in an institution because, again, the industry partner has confidence. Colleges and universities know how knowledge transfer works. We are in that business. That is our business, and we can help industry partners to meet those needs, oftentimes at a much lower cost than what they would incur if they were to try to do something similar on their own. Picture, for example, the resources NGWA would have to put into developing virtual reality modules. When we already have that expertise, we have the systems available within our colleges to help them get there. So let's talk about a couple of fast facts of, the success of the project and where we've been. We have had the greatest fortune and support from our board for this project for the last 3 years and have been able to receive $1.8 million of project funding to support this. We have 27 institutions ultimately that are eligible to apply for funding for micro credentials, and they can use the funds that we provide them to engage with employers, whether that be through hosting events like community breakfasts, incentivizing the collaboration opportunities with open educational resources and course development, or other kinds of community involvement things that they may want to undertake. We do require student or institutions, though, that are taking advantage of this funding to ensure that some of it goes towards scholarshiping of students. It is a requirement for the institutions that actually take advantage of this to find industry partners that are willing to match contributions of scholarships, either through direct tuition support or other forms of in-kind support, such as time off from the job to be able to attend or complete the work. So it really is intended, with the funding that we provide, that we're creating new opportunities for industry partnerships and also ones that do require buy-in from them. We want to make sure that the programs we offer are meeting their needs, but we also want to make sure that they're being a great support for the employees that are going through these programs and providing them with viable career pathways. As of today, we have over 250 programs that have launched through Upskill OK. We initially started approving programs and launching them in May of 2022 and lingered, I would say, with around 30 programs for a couple of months. And ever since then, things have just been exponentially scaling for us. I'll get to some of the metrics that I wanted to share with you here in a minute. We now have 23 of those 27 institutions eligible to propose programs participating in Upskill OK. So just a few of them left that we haven't quite gotten to yet, but we are still persisting and trying to bring them on board as we're able. And I will tell you, just in full disclosure, that the individual institutions that are not yet participating in this are an interesting mixture. It includes a research institution, some rural community colleges, and also some metropolitan institutions. So various reasons can exist at institutions for not being prepared to launch this kind of a program, but it is our goal and plan that we will eventually have all institutions in the state offering micro credentials through Upskill OK. The number that I think I'm most proud of out of this, and I have no way to claim any work in it at all, is the 90 industry partnerships that we have reached with the micro-credential programs. If you navigate to our homepage, you'll actually see a list that's linked there that says partners by program, and you can see the individual industry partners, the institutions they're working with, and the particular programs that they're actually putting employees through to get a flavor of what those partnerships look like. I will just tell you too, the range of size of those partners is incredible. We have small employers from local police departments in towns that may not have more than 1,000 people, all the way up to organizations like Macy's Fulfillment Center Network, which has operations across the country, but is funneling employees through one of our programs at Tulsa Community College. So scale, again, I think is one of the great things about micro-credentials. It can really happen no matter the size of the employer, bringing in that value and building that relationship in a reciprocal way of sharing that content and learning outcomes related to job skills. Let's discuss just a couple of the sample micro-credential programs, and then I want to make sure we leave plenty of time available for questions that you all may have. Just highlighting a few of the things here. The first one from Cameron University. We do, along the lines of micro-credentials, also promote the notion of incremental credentialing. Fundamentals of accounting, for example, is actually taking financial accounting and managerial accounting, which are courses that usually sit within any business core program of associate's degrees or bachelor's degrees, and recognizing that once students complete accounting 1 and 2, they have a general level of bookkeeping expertise that could be quite applicable on the job. Not all bookkeeping roles or accounting roles do require a bachelor's or associate's degree. So again, how can we look at these existing programs, particularly considering general education or programs that may have a core set of courses within them, and again, embed these incremental credentials? One of the great resources that I have taken advantage of numerous times within this lens has been an organization called Credential as You Go. They have some great researchers on their team that are really promoting this notion of let's create new programs that address emerging technologies and issues, but also take a retroactive look at some of our existing degrees and certificates and see what are the competencies employers care about right now. Can we maybe chunk some of this out into these micro-credentials to help, again, our students understand and communicate along the way? This is what I'm gaining, and this is what I'm qualified to do. A couple of others that I think are incredibly unique include Connor State College, which even provides free credentials such as workplace fundamentals. We get a lot of feedback from employers that while they do need the more advanced or technical skills related to their sector, that they also need the very basic skills that employees may sometimes lack to be successful on the job, such as communication, digital competencies, et cetera there. Once again, you also see other examples up here, such as Oklahoma City Community College's Paramedic Care 1 through 4 program. They have a wonderful partnership with the Emergency Services Administration Unit, which is our ambulance service within the Oklahoma City area, as well as some of the fire departments to put people through that 4-sequence program. The best part, again, is that whenever somebody completes the 4 micro-credentials within paramedic care, if they want to get an associate's degree, every course that they have taken within that process stacks into that degree. So they may already be halfway done ultimately with that credential by the time they get through that 4-sequence micro-credential, while they could still be working on the job, but finish that degree to get more opportunities for advancement and higher pay along the way. Oklahoma also has a burgeoning film industry, and Oklahoma City Community College has been able to take advantage of that and be able to provide support to wonderful partners that we have here through the set construction program. So we have an organization called Prairie Surf Studios that's relatively new to Oklahoma City, but has been largely responsible for setting up the film industry throughout our state and promoting things like Tulsa King, being able to come and shoot on location here. And so it's important that we have these pipelines for specific skills in order to be able to recruit such companies as Prairie Surf, because again, before they came, I can't say that Oklahoma had much of an area for set construction or much of a public presence for set construction beyond perhaps traditional theater programs or broadcasting programs. But again, specifically marketing to an emerging industry in Oklahoma. I know you all will get a copy of these slides, so I won't cover too much on this page other than to let you know that some of our institutions have leveraged a partnership with Coursera. We are actually a system partner with Coursera, and so institutions have an opportunity to leverage micro-credential programs that use that platform, which means they can stand things up very quickly, but it does require them to dedicate some support and make sure that students are not just floundering and being left alone in those correspondence style learning activities. So as of July 2023, our institutions shared with us that they had 2,280 participants that were enrolled in 109 programs. So again, our reporting structure is something that I'll talk about here momentarily, but ultimately we are impacting at least a couple of thousand students per year. Our institutions within the same reporting cycle did say that they expected over 4,000 completions for micro-credentials by June 30th of this coming year. So their projections for the 2023 and 24 fiscal year period ultimately there. And just to give you a little bit of a sense of scale for where these numbers may sit in the overall scheme of Oklahoma's awarding of credentials, in the 2021 and 22 academic year, we awarded 1,387 certificates. So there is a chance, I think, as we start to measure the impact of this, that micro-credentials are going to outpace certificates if they've not already done so concerning the conferrals. We did award within that same academic year 9,877 associate's degrees. And again, that's a pretty close number here if we're considering this amount of scale, represented on the screen. So wouldn't surprise me too much if we don't start inching up closer to that direction, particularly again, if our four-year programs and above start including micro-credentials embedded within their existing programs. And once again, our awarded bachelor's degrees hovered around 17,000 for that particular academic year. So there's a huge opportunity. And again, I see promise with the numbers that we've already demonstrated here with the viability of this program. And I think that we are only going to continue to see this exponential growth. Just a couple of other things I wanted to mention to you. Our most popular subject areas to date have been information technology, education, as well as criminal justice now that we've launched the Detention and Correctional Officer Initiative. I did track month over month the requests that we received, and our average has been 16 new program requests every month since this policy was approved, which happened around March of 2022. It is also interesting looking at the range or spread of the number of offerings per institution. Again, we have 5 of our institutions that haven't yet offered micro-credentials through Upskill OK. 22 of them are still at the beginning stage of offering 1 to 10 programs in total. We have 3 that are, I would say, at the medium stage of having 11 to 20 programs. 2 of them sit between 21 and 30. And we have 1 outlier there, which is, I will say, Oklahoma City Community College, which has 51 micro-credential programs available within our catalog. So where are we headed ultimately for this fall? The first thing that we will be doing is actually launching what we're calling the Micro-Credentials Design Lab Series. Institutions do need a lot of support, especially if micro-credentials are a new concept and you're adding more work to the plate of individuals that are already teaching in these credit-bearing programs or otherwise. And so we have actually contracted with a paid speaker who will offer a 6-series workshop for our programs ultimately to help them design a program from start to finish between the start of this year and the end of the spring. We will also host an event that's called the Micro Credentials Hackathon that's going to take place at our annual Oklahoma Learning Innovation Summit in spring, where we hope to invite industry partners in the room with the academic professionals working on these programs for a very intensive design session and Q&A with them to potentially come up with a micro-credential program proposal within that room. We are also embarking on the leveraging of the state Regents unitary data system to collect completion data of credit and non-credit micro-credentials. I'm very happy to see my colleague, Dr. Baird, on the call today, who is going to be a major partner as we start to figure this out. But ultimately, we see a pretty easy roadmap for collecting data on the completion of credit-bearing credentials. Non-credit credentials are a whole other bear to figure out. We've had to make decisions lately about which non-credit credentials at our institutions should we track? Is it just those that have been proposed by the state regents for approval, or is it everything within continuing education that could be considered technically a micro-credential? But ultimately, again, having a unitary data system is an excellent place to start. And again, that roadmap will unfold. So Charles, we may need to have another webinar sometime within about 6 months, to talk about what we figured out with data, as this moves on there.
Yeah, I know you're half joking, and we can discuss that, but I do want to call out, that this is something that comes up in the data leads calls at CCA, but like having really strong requirements definition that's iteratively cycled with your data function is not always present. I'm sure that that's something that folks on this call experience. And so I'm actually glad that you're calling out Stephanie and this function. And I hope that everybody thinks about that as the broader implication, not just for this work, but any of your policy and academic work, that like, clearly there's a tight-knit system. I don't know if it's really formalized, that brings in data at this like highest level conversations and not as a back burner thing, which right. is always, the latter way is not the way. It's just quote the Mandalorian, which is not a real quote. Go ahead.
No, Charles, I think that's quite an accurate statement, as far as what we strive for as a system here. And I should have said this even at the start. I wear probably about 5 hats, I feel like, whenever I talk about micro-credentials, from being an academic advisor, an instructional designer, a strategic planner, a program manager, a director of online learning. You have to have all hands on deck from your system or your institution in order to make this work. And I'll be the first to admit that I think we've been late to the game in bringing some people to the table sometimes with this, including the data conversations that we're having now. But I just can't emphasize enough that you need to bring in people from your admissions team, your registrars, ask them, how does this impact the policies that are already in place? Your business officers, for example, if you're going to be offering continuing education courses in an online storefront format, there are many conversations that need to take place before that can be possible. So yes, it's just so important to make sure you include a number of people, as many people as you can, launching this up front to see, things that just may fall off your radar if you're that project lead. The next thing, again, that I mentioned previously is that we have launched a series of special project grants for this fall to initiate progress in particular critical occupation and emerging skills areas. Just so you all know what a grant looks like for a single program for us, the amount that we're making available to institutions on a per program grant basis for this one is $15,000. So they do have requirements that they have to scholarship students, but they can still use the funds for employer engagement, program development, whatever needs that they may have there. We have a general structure at the beginning of every year where we issue funds to institutions on an opt-in basis with a series of requirements that they have to meet. And this particular project grant is just a pared down version of that that's targeting certain areas. The other thing that we have focused on extensively, and again, I can't emphasize enough as you build this initiative from the start, you have to have marketing dollars available in order for this to work, especially if you're building something at a state level. It can be very confusing and a bit of chaos, I think, to have a lot of marketing for continuing education opportunities in this realm going out. But if you can synthesize a brand for your initiative, a home for your programs where you can direct people to find them in an easy way, it becomes very possible at that point to do a synthesized marketing campaign for this particular project. We have leveraged multiple digital platforms. We have found out a lot about how you reach particular demographics of students. Young males, I will tell you from what we've learned, are the hardest demographic overall to reach. And YouTube seems to be the most effective way to reach them for these kinds of programs. But you will need to engage marketing professionals, I think, to make it effective and get the word out in a two-pronged way, I should mention, because you have to market this to industry partners up front. Let them know this new program is available, that you're open for business to partner with them. But then you also have to let the students and employees know these opportunities are available for you. We have scholarships available. They're short-term in nature. Let's get you on your career path to this next step. So marketing, again, is a very important pillar there. So that concludes my portion of the PowerPoint there, Charles, and I'm happy to take any questions from the group if there might be.
That's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
It's like Charles,
we've been setting out that joke for 20 minutes.
I'll jump in if you don't mind to kind of sum up before we get to questions. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Placido.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate the team sharing all that. I hope you found one or two things that are useful to you all. And I want to leave time for some questions, as I said. But I really want to express my gratitude for the Complete College America team, and specifically Charles, for all of their steadfast commitment to transforming higher education. Everybody on the call, actually. The synergy between CCA and Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education is not coincidental. It is a deliberate alignment of both of our vision, our mission, and action. Our collaborative initiatives, whether it's fostering academic and career alignment, everything that you heard today, we could go on, math pathways with our launch years initiative, bear a testament to what we can achieve when we pool our resources, intellect, and resolve. By sharing these best practices like we did today, we learn from each other. We are not just enhancing the educational landscape in Oklahoma, but we're working together to set a national example. And I think someone, maybe Charles, said that earlier. So we shared a few significant projects today, but let's not lose sight of a bigger picture. As we talk about strategies and initiatives, it's easy to forget that the core of our work as students, our future leaders, innovators, and citizens. Our united efforts are not just for academic statistics or, for a project success. They're for the betterment of lives, communities, and indeed our entire country. Higher education is not merely a path to personal success. That's sort of where the mind space I'm always in. I have to remind myself it's a cornerstone for our democracy and a catalyst for societal progress. In today's world, rapidly evolving world, the role of higher education and equipping individuals with the necessary skills and knowledge just can't be overstated. But by working together, we're not just shaping the future of education, we're shaping the future of our country. So remember, each step we take together is a step towards a more equitable, prosperous, and enlightened society. So now I really appreciate to hear your thoughts and feedback. Thank you so much. If you were a classroom, you were so patient and quiet, I guess you didn't have a choice on Zoom. But and if we don't have enough time to answer all of your questions, or you have detailed questions, or as Brad mentioned earlier, if you want us to come and speak more specifically to your team on anything, reach out to us. You have our emails from the calendar invite. Any one of us would be happy to work with you on anything. So please, suggestions, if you want to put it in chat or if you just want to unmute and ask.
Hi, everybody. I've got a question. My name is Abby. I'm from Washington State. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about the conversations about how this is intersected with financial aid and students' understanding of aid available to them. I know you mentioned scholarships and some other pieces throughout, but what has that looked like largely across different institutions?
I can hop in here for just a minute, Abby. Financial aid is an interesting one with micro credentials, because the question that I personally always start it with is, how do we get the aid to the students? Regardless of what the program is, I need to fit them into the mold to get them the aid. And really the dividing line that I've seen is among the credit bearing and the non-credit programs for micro credentials. For credit-bearing programs, institutions do always have the opportunity to recommend that a student be admitted to a degree-seeking program that includes that embedded micro-credential, which would thus qualify them for financial aid opportunities. Could also provide really great incentive for them to continue on, earning progress towards that degree program without any barriers for admissions to be encountered there. If they're not willing and able to do that, ultimately, financial aid does become a bit more limited as far as what's available for those students. With the scholarship dollars that we provide from the state regents, there's no particular requirement for an individual to have a FAFSA on file. We also don't have some of the same restrictions, as necessarily from federal funds, because they come from state appropriated dollars. So again, a little bit of a distinction there, but recommendation is for full financial aid opportunities, it is best to counsel the student and enroll them in a degree program, award them the micro-credential as soon as they complete that. For the non-credit opportunities, obviously things are different. We do still have opportunities to scholarship students that are in the non-credit programs, but it's available through the state funding that we provided to the institutions opting into it, and through the dollars that are available from their industry partners. So with Fortune, those non-credit programs tend to be much lower in cost because they don't have the regular tuition and fees associated with them. But ultimately the same level of support, from federal sources may not apply to those non-credit programs, of course. So I hope that answers your question. Happy to answer any follow-up if you have any.
Brad, I'll add one more nuance to that. One of the things that we worked on over the last year and a half is compilation of a statewide database of employers throughout the state that provide some form of higher ed benefit. And so we have that available online. I'll pop the link down into the chat. And we share that broadly with our institutional financial aid offices, with high school counselors as well, because there are so many employers. We're now up to more than 100 who provide some kind of benefit, and that might apply in circumstances like this as well.
Thank you, Chancellor. That's a great addition, and it's a great resource as well.
Any other questions? And great, thanks for speaking up, Abby. That was a good question.
Hi, this is Lynette from Pennsylvania. How has the micro-credentialing certificates, have you had any pushback from the institutions in accepting them as some sort of transfer credit as they continue on?
Thanks for that question, Lynette. So ultimately, if the micro-credential includes credit-bearing coursework, the courses have to be transcribed in the regular way. So a student would actually receive 2 forms of recognition for the completion of that work. They would receive the transcription of the course as well as the digital badge upon completion of that sequence of the micro-credential if it's more than one course there at the end of the day.
Have you seen a lot of the experiential learning credits transferred, all if that micro-credential was non-credit bearing?
So that's, I think, one of the areas that we still have some work to do and some capacity to work in here is, again, the articulation of these non-credit micro-credentials through prior learning assessment into the credit-bearing coursework, potentially at another location. And I will tell you, my answer to our institutions when they ask that is to leverage those existing processes. And I can't say that we have any shining examples yet of that having been done. I will tell you, though, as far as experiential learning goes, we do have some credentials within our directory that institutions have introduced that focus on service learning, for example, and require an on-the-job experience related to the program's focus with an industry partner. And I really think those could be a sweet spot for this kind of conversion or articulation from non-credit to credit. We just haven't seen that case pushed yet.
Brad, do you want to, since you were talking about things we're working on, do you want to mention concurrent?
Yeah, so concurrent students have also come up numerous times in relation to micro-credentials. And, you know, I think it kind of presents, and it may be too extreme of a term, but an existential crisis in a way for what the mission is of concurrent programs. We obviously want to encourage high school students as much as possible to take courses that will count towards their degree pathway. There is no restriction right now that says a student can't enroll in a micro-credential program, any of them ultimately in our catalog. And I think that that kind of begs the question, you know, if we go out and present this opportunity to a high school audience, how do we talk about micro-credentials in line with the other certificates and degree program opportunities that are available here? Again, while not trying to water down by any means the value of a full degree. We always hope, honestly, that micro-credentials will be a pathway for somebody to earn the full degree. But I think, again, for high school students in particular, there's a particular opportunity to, you know, show micro-credentials and make them valuable for them if they're not interested in getting that full college degree yet.
And I would say that just to be clear, if you're just getting started, our recommendation is you clearly define a handful of occupations or workforce skills or something that your state wants to focus on. That will be easy lifts, clearly defined, work with a good industry partner, work with a university who's willing, and start with those simple things and get going and get on a system and have a framework, and then start to work on all these nuanced things like credit for prior learning or concurrent or all these million things we're running into now.
And the last question I have, and I might have missed it in the beginning, but did Oklahoma develop their own in-house database for this, or did you go out with a vendor? Is it through Upskill? And if I missed that, I apologize.
Yes, our database is actually facilitated through a website plugin. It took us a while to find the right one that would actually meet the functions that we needed. And I will tell you, Lynette, one of the complications that we had and kind of demands that I had whenever we were designing that website is I needed to be able to put programs out there that we are approving and have them go on the website right away. We have a process we go through for updating communications and websites in the agency that can sometimes take a little bit, which is for good reason, but we needed to be nimble for this. And as soon as the programs are done, get them out there. So I actually have a master Google sheet that feeds to this plugin that's on our website, where I put the coding in for all of the programs that are approved. So what you'll see on the website out there, there's actually specific HTML that will pull the badge image so that it shows, and also keeps things accessible there. So if you get to that point, or if you need a reference to the particular plugin, I'm happy to reach out to our developers and provide that to you. But it did take some searching and very clear communication to them of, this is the functionality that I need for people searching for programs. And I'll admit to you that there are days that I still go and navigate through our program database and I say, I think we need to shop around for another plugin, because this one's not exactly getting me what I want today, but it seems to be the best one that we found so far.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I think we're at time, Charles. Did you want to sum up or ask that last question?
Yeah, I'll actually forget to sum up, because I'll send out a summary later. But how about the last question was, it's actually related to what's come up, in terms of both the financial aid and the stackability. And I realize, if we go over, I don't think anybody would be insulted if people have a hard stop and have a meeting that they have to run to. How does this work against your certificate programming and your more standard credit bearing certificates vis-a-vis your micro credentials? Both in terms of, I think the financial aid implication is like the first and foremost of that, but I'm also just curious in terms of raw numbers. You might not have it off the top of your head, like the proportion of your non-degree programming, how much of it is micro credentials at this point, because you're in the thousands, which is amazing, versus your credit bearing certificates, and is one, for lack of a better way of putting it, cannibalizing the other, or are they both doing their own thing?
Well, I will put out that by the figures of what we have tracked so far, micro credentials are outpacing the awarding of certificates. So it's pretty clear, even from the possibly inaccurate data that I may have access to on the programs reported by our schools. And honestly, Charles, as far as the cannibalization goes, I think that they serve a similar market, certificates and the micro credentials here. But micro credentials are such a more tangible opportunity that I think could feed up into that structure of certificates in a way that doesn't have to make it an opportunity for cannibalization. I will say, I think where we've kind of built that in is the ease of how these programs can get approved. One thing I didn't really touch on is we've made modifications over time that allows these programs to be approved very rapidly. And once an institution is authorized to offer a micro credential, they're basically on a notification process at that point. So there are differences, and I think ease that's built into micro credentials that will cause some kind of a differentiation there. But I'm not sure, if I have a firm statement yet on cannibalization. And I might welcome Dr. Placido and the Chancellor to speak on that as well.
I like how we use the word cannibalization so much.
Yeah, I definitely think there's still going to be a role for certificates, but as Brad said, we're trying to encourage them to actually stack the credentials. So you stack your badges into a certificate, or stack your badges into an associate's degree. So it's new. It's an and. I don't think it's an or. So there might be some shift, but I think where you've got so many certificates that already had an industry or field level, meaningful credential, those aren't going away. But if there is less value in an older certificate, it's going to get swooped up by this for sure. I think you mentioned, Charles, in the chat, more agile. Brad, we had a Regent come to us who had a partner at the corrections. Brad gave that example of the detention officers, and they said, hey, this is a crisis for us in our prison systems. What can you do? We need, this educated workforce, but we need it tomorrow. And I think the whole thing was like less than 2 months out the door.
It was. We had one Seminole State College had individuals enrolled in the program within 2 months of us launching that call for proposals. Very rapid opportunity.
So I was writing in the chat. So I also, Oklahoma team, I understand you might have a hard stop. So how about we take one more question from Tracy, who's had her hand up, following protocols in the Zoom era. And then let's call it with all the email addresses and the chats and links and outstanding offers for follow-ups.
So I just wanted to, and I'm from Tennessee with the Higher Ed Commission. I serve as Director of Transfer and Articulation. So the question is for Angel. Do you use the same database that Brad uses for your information, or are they two separate platforms?
Based on how he's describing mine is a completely separate platform, because I send mine to communications and wait about a week for it to get uploaded. I believe they work with our website developer that we've partnered with. Okay. If you're interested in that, I can send you, I'm not sure if they work out of state or how that works, but I can definitely send you the information on who we've utilized to develop our Show What You Know website.
Yeah, I'm really interested in some of the things you spoke on, so I will be sending you an email here shortly to make the connection. I appreciate it.
Sounds good.
I'm just going to pipe in to say that the course transfer module was actually built by one of our institution's development teams. We contracted with them. So yeah, that one is particularly in-house.
Okay. Thank you for that.
So with that, why don't we call it a call? I'll stay on as folks are leaving in case anybody from the Oklahoma team wants to debrief, or from CCA. But thank you all very much for your attendance, and really special thank you to the Oklahoma team and to Brad and Angel in particular for those really fantastic overviews.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.